just want to take this moment to also have us recognize that unemployment is a huge emotional and mental, takes a huge emotional and mental toll. And I want to make sure that people are very conscious of that and cognizant of that. This is not just an economic issue. It's an issue of health. It's an issue of stress. It's an issue of mental health. And so if you are going through it right now, please make sure that you know that there's a lot of hotlines out there to help you talk through these issues as well. And if you need additional assistance, we're here for you. And make sure that you don't know that you're not in this alone. There are millions of people, just 3.3 million people applied for unemployment in just this past week alone. And as time goes on, we're going to have to really make sure that we come together and be there together. So if you're on this call and say you if you have the blessing of not experiencing unemployment right now, make sure that you're checking in on your friends and loved ones regularly on those that are, and don't be afraid to extend a helping hand, because really at the end of the day, we are all in this together. And what our campaign is about, but really what our community is about overall, is making sure that we leave no person behind, even when times are hard. So with that, I would just want to go to some live questions that you all have in the chat. And I hope that this has been helpful for you all, and I wish you all the very, very best.
Well, thank you so much, Alex, for that. That was amazing presentation. I'll start it off with one question that we got, and you can pop up the Q&A button on your computer, and you'll see questions too. You can choose.
Great.
We'll bounce it off that way.
Sure.
There's a question here. Is the $1,200 payment a one-time payment?
So the answer is yes, and it's not enough. I'm telling you right now, and as you probably already know, $1,200 in New York City is not enough. We fought for recurring payments. In fact, what we fought for was $2,000 per person, in addition to more monthly recurring payments. If you have children, on top of it, on top of that payment, if you have children, recurring for everybody. And again, the Trump administration and Mitch McConnell's Senate and the Republicans absolutely refused to entertain the idea of recurring payments. But this is something that we're going to continue to fight for, because it's what we need. So Randy, do you want me to go through some of the Q&A here? Yep,
definitely.
Okay. Sure. So someone says, last question, my brother is a paramedic who earned $103,000. Is he entitled to receive cash assistance? If your annual gross income, your AGI on your most recent tax return. And so here's what I'd say. The first question is, did he earn that in 2018? If that's what he earned in 2018, and 2018 is his most recent filed taxes, if he filed 2019, if he already filed 2019 and that's there as well, then unfortunately he is ineligible, which is why I fought against the means test, because as we know, New York City experiences a completely different cost of living than the rest of the country. And in a lot of other parts of the country, $103,000 buys you everything. It gets you a house, it gets you a beautiful, standard of living. But in New York City, if you have kids and you're making $103,000, and let's say you are supporting other people in your family and you're a sole income earner, that $1,200 helps you. But unfortunately, again, the way that this administration decided to handle this, if your annual gross income, your AGI on your most recent tax filing has you at $103,000, you are ineligible. You've been phased out. But if there's an adult in your brother, if your brother is married, or if there's another adult in that household that does not make it, they will receive it and they are eligible. Next up. I am a teacher in public school that serves recent immigrants. Many of our undocumented families' fear is that 90-day moratorium on eviction may not protect them. Is this true? What should they know about this? do not allow this moment to spread disinformation and put more fear on top of the existing legitimate fears that our undocumented neighbors have. So I'm pleased to announce that that the 90-day eviction moratorium covers everyone. All of the housing courts in New York City have been shut down. So a landlord cannot take you to court. That being said, sorry if you hear a snore, there's Deco here who's joining me. I'll bring him on at the end of the call. But basically, Deco's my puppy, by the way. Basically what we're experiencing right now is that this 90-day eviction moratorium, no one is going to be taken to court, and there will not be public resources used to evict people from their homes. Now, that's not to say that there are not abusive landlords. There are abusive landlords that exist in the city that try to leverage a person's documentation status as a way to extort them, where basically they will say, if you don't, I'm going to suddenly raise your rent, or I'm going to suddenly ask you for a cash advance, or if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to call ICE on you. If you know someone in that situation, call my office and we will go bulldog, because that is wrong. It's a violation. It's a potential violation of the, I believe, Equal Housing Act. And we need to make sure that people are not being extorted and abused due to their documentation status. When self-employed people or independent contractors are filing for unemployment, who do you list as an employer? Do you list your own EIN, TIN, or do you list the EIN, TIN of yourself or your business? This is an excellent question. When you start going through the unemployment process, make sure you have your most recent tax filing with you. And when you have your most recent tax filing with you, when you go through the form, it's possible that the new PUA, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, which now covers you if you're self-employed or a freelancer, they will ask you for a couple of pieces of information from your most recent tax filing, and you just plug that in and they'll be able to circle back with you. Oh, I guess I'm supposed to answer live here. If I'm still working 16 hours at work at a part-time job, do I qualify for any kind of UI? Randy.
That's a very good question. It depends. It depends. The law says if you are now partially unemployed due to any of those reasons, you do qualify. So if those 16 hours were what you were working always previously, you aren't. But if you were maybe working 24 hours before and now 16, that would qualify as partially.
Yes. So like Randy said, the answer is maybe. It depends. If your hours have been cut, you qualify for unemployment. If you've always been working 16 hours and your hours have not changed, you do not qualify. The stimulus check is based on net adjusted gross income after all deductions like 401k, medical. So the stimulus check is based on your AGI, is not your, the stimulus check is based on your adjusted gross income, correct, Randy?
Yep, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to pull up the slide again because it's a good to explain it.
So we've got a slide for this ready for you all. So we're just pulling it up. But yes, stimulus checks are based on your AGI. So what is your adjusted gross income? So your AGI is, you can go through all of this calculation. It's your gross income minus adjustments to income, but basically just go to your tax form. If you have your 2018 or 2019 filing, the most recent one, it's that little box. It's box A8B, correct? If you have a 1040.
Yes. Yep.
So you can go through your whole filing, just pull up 8B, and that number tells you if you are eligible or not.
And that's 8B if you have if you filed 2019. If you filed last year, and that's the one you're going off, it would be line 7.
Okay, so if you filed 2018, it's line 7. If you filed 2019, it's 8B. So 2018 is line 7, 2019 is 8B. And that's the magic number that tells you if you're under the 75 or under the 99 or not. So this one, here's a tangential question, but I want to kind of answer it a little bit quickly. How could freelancers receive anything under the PPP? So what is PPP? PPP is the Payroll Protection Program. That's a separate program apart from unemployment assistance. That's the forgiveness of small business loans. Freelancers and self-employed people are also eligible for that program. That is a whole separate conversation, and we're actually planning a separate webinar for small businesses in our district and in New York in how to cover the payroll protection program and the forgivable student loans that are going to be extended to small businesses. That's a whole separate workshop, and I want to make sure that I dedicate at least an entire hour to you guys, the small business owners that are trying to keep people on payroll. So we're going to announce that date soon. Know that you are eligible, and we're going to go through a whole walkthrough on how you apply for that program.
Hey, Alex, we're getting a lot of comments also coming in still about inability to access the unemployment insurance office. I know you talked about it, but could you talk about it again, of the frustration going on with that?
Sure. So some of you are having to take hours to apply for unemployment. So this is basically the issue, and this is what we've been talking about, is that for this entire time, we have been fighting back against the defunding of our social safety net. And just like how our healthcare system is being slammed right now, and there's no reason for it, the same thing that is happening to our unemployment system. And that's because we have basically pursued this, a lot of politicians have pursued this austerity agenda of defunding our social safety net over years. And what happens is that our system gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And then when something like this hits, when this pandemic hits, things hit the fan. Nurses can't get PPE, unemployment websites get overloaded. And so I want to let you all know that I see you and I hear you. This unemployment website is run by the state government. I'm a federally elected official, so my job is to get money to the state, and the state's job is to disperse it efficiently. But also what's happening right now is a completely unprecedented historic event. We have not ever had 3.3 million people apply for unemployment in 1 week in pretty much recorded history. We have not seen a shock like this to our system. Aside from the Great Depression, we have not been on a trajectory like this ever. And so because it happened so suddenly, these websites are not prepared. And what it means, honestly, and unfortunately, what it means is that if you have to apply, you have to stick at it. It's not going to, likely it may not be an easy process. I was just talking to, one of our most powerful community members on the Bronx side, Rosa Clemente, and she was going through this process and trying to apply for someone or for herself. And she started at around 10 a.m. Or 9:30 in the morning. And she had to keep trying until about noon. And so it took her several hours trying on that website. She did apply on the day associated with her last name. So my first recommendation is everyone's trying to apply on the procrastinating, or I shouldn't say that, but everyone's trying to apply on the unassigned days, or a lot of people are trying to apply on the unassigned days, which is Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Those are probably the hardest days to apply. So I really, really encourage you, if you're trying to get this done, stay at it Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But if you can't get it through on those days, which I imagine have very high volume, try to apply on either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, whichever day is affiliated with your last name. So really try to hang in there on the date of your last name. but I'm telling you that I hear you and I see you, and these websites are completely overwhelmed right now. And that's why we just got to hang at it, because we've literally never had a scenario where 3 million people applied for insurance at the same time. It is absolutely unprecedented. You know, and let this be a moment for us, like, let us remember this moment, because this is not just a one-time emergency. It's always been an emergency. It's always been a problem. And now that everyone is crushing these systems at once, the problem has been expanded and amplified and mushroomed, but these problems are not new. They're just scaled up for the whole world to see. And we need to make sure in the future that we both fight and continue to support policies and agendas that don't abandon our social safety net. Because the problem that we have right now is that for years, politicians have been arguing that healthcare isn't a human right, that unemployment insurance is too generous or isn't a right. And so as a consequence of that, as a consequence of years of defunding, now this thing hits and a lot of people are caught out there, and these systems are caught unprepared. So that's the moment that we're in. It's a huge problem and we need to fix it. And we need to, that's why we fight for what we fight for in Congress. But hang in there. That's my main encouragement to you. Hang in there. It may take hours and it's crazy frustrating, but it's our only recourse right now.
Thank you. That was good. Really good update and important information about how everything's changing and evolving. We're seeing in the chat too, a lot of people are ahead of the game and already applying for this, which is great. And in New York State, you do technically have to finish your unemployment benefit application via a phone call with a physical human.
Oh, okay.
And that's the process. But the governor recently said that they're trying to bypass that process. And it's evolving every day. And there's frustration on that end with the backups with the phone calls. And until there's an update there, they will continue to be. We have a really good question and really cool that we have a lot of folks from the 32BJ community in here. And Shay Barry says, I am a fast food organizer for SEIU 32BJ. Will you allow Chipotle Mexican Grill to be given a stimulus bailout without a guarantee that these funds provide better paid sick leave, paid time off, better health care, better wages, and a comprehensive financial relief plan for COVID-related issues?
So as many of you saw, I was hooting and hollering on the floor of the House last week because these giveaways to these major corporations are far more generous than what people are giving small businesses, but B, in a lot of respects in terms of the amount of money that we're spending and so on. And B, there isn't enough accountability given to these corporations. And so first of all, to the person that's asking this question, Randy, what's this person's name?
Shay Berry.
So first of all, Shay, I want to thank you for your organizing and thank you for recognizing your power and using your power to apply pressure. Because if any corporation, and that includes Chipotle, is taking money from the public, from our public funds, from you, then they should be meeting a higher standard of taking care of our people. And that includes paid sick leave for everyone. That includes capping CEO pay. That includes that includes treating employees better. It includes a living wage. And I think it's ridiculous that we allow these companies to get away with all of this stuff when we're the ones that are funding their continued survival with a bailout. So it definitely requires a renewed public contract. I'm sad to say. So first of all, as you all know, I spoke my opposition to this bailout on the floor, but it's really important that I think that if I am not your representative, and if you have a different member of Congress that's representing you, it's really important that you voice your opposition to these bailouts, because the reason a lot of Democrats, I think, vote for these bills is because they're scared of what will happen if they don't vote for them. And they're scared that their community won't understand why they voted no to a relief bill. And if you make it clear that you know that this isn't a fair shake, then it'll kind of stiffen their spines a little bit more to join us in opposing these bailouts. So, so that's my encouragement there. And you know, join us. Thank you for that organizing. It's so needed. It's so badly needed.
And in the interest of time, to wrap up, we've been also getting a lot of comments on whether or not undocumented folks qualify for the new unemployment benefits, where you speak to that, right? Yeah.
Yes. So this is a very important question. So this administration, in the negotiations on this bill, basically said that anything for immigrants is a non-starter. And we fought so that both the cash assistance and the expanded unemployment can apply to anyone with an ITIN, which is how undocumented people pay taxes. Yes, undocumented people pay taxes. Undocumented people pay billions of dollars in taxes every year. We send our kids to public school on the taxes that undocumented people pay. We pay police officers and firefighters and nurses and fund our hospitals and fund our infrastructure on taxes that undocumented people pay. Undocumented people pay more money in taxes than Amazon or Facebook or anything combined. So yes, I believe that if you pay into this system, then you should benefit from this system. That being said, as much as we fought for it, Trump and McConnell and the GOP and all of these folks basically said it was a non-starter. They would veto any bill that benefits undocumented people. So there is not cash assistance for the undocumented. You have to have a social security number. So if you are an immigrant with a social security number, you will receive benefits. But if you are undocumented with an ITIN, you will not receive federal assistance. Now, that is not to say that you are not eligible for any help at all, because certain state managed programs, like the existing unemployment assistance program, not the additional 600, but the existing unemployment assistance program, there may be room there. Medicaid, SNAP, WIC, some of these state covered programs have wiggle room for undocumented people, because again, you pay state taxes and transaction taxes as well, sales tax. So, so some of these state programs are eligible for you if you are undocumented, but what just passed in the CARE Act very cruelly cut out undocumented people, despite the fact that they pay into the system just as much as anyone else.